Welcome back to Mount & Blade Bannerlord Abridged, where last time I did the story missions and became the Bannerlord itself, although nothing happened as a result. Then we went back to the war fighting. I did this big plan to try and bring down the Western Empire, I think it was, the remnants of. This ultimately failed due to the AI being annoying, so then we went on to take a castle, and now we're just at war with the Azurai instead. I went into the Empire where the Azurai had a random town, and one of our armies was besieging this place, so I thought I'll help them take it. Nothing too unusual here, just going to stand in front of the wall and help out a bit. Going to try and clear the enemy in front of the ladders out, because that's where the real exploits happen. Just need to get like 3 guys over the ladders without them being stun locked and killed, and then you're in business. And clearing out the archers is always good too. Looks like I managed to actually spot one in the window there. So that was that. We won that fight pretty easily. But then I decided to do something a little bit different. I thought, you know what, this Stop the Conspiracy quest that just keeps coming back, I'm going to actually try and do it now. Here's a look at my stats, by the way, grabbing a couple of perks here. I noted that basically this game follows the later Total War school of perks, in that they do a very small thing. So altogether, once you have like all the perks, you'll be more powerful. But each one's basically meaningless. Anyway, moving on. We go to the city where the conspiracy started. This is where I talked to that first NPC who was the pro-Empire Bannerlord person. And I thought maybe we can find her again. Since this is the only lead we have on this conspiracy, we know that she is the ringleader. I went around town and you have the option to ask people where someone is. Unfortunately, I can only ask where my own party members are. And some of them are standing behind me, so this isn't particularly useful actually. Then I decided to go to the tavern keeper. I figured this guy is probably the nexus of some sort of conspiracy. We have various things we can ask him about for intel on various topics. None of them seem to be relevant. And as it turns out, he says the same thing to all of them, that being that he has no information, so actually nothing came of that. I was about to give up, but I talked to this random guy in the tavern and he said he knew where the conspiracy leader was. And I was like, I actually am onto something. Maybe we really are about to stop the conspiracy. And as it turns out, she was just standing over there. I just walked past her and didn't notice earlier. So here we go. This is the leader of the conspiracy against us. The problem is, you can't do anything about the conspiracy here. She just acts like a generic NPC. All of the menus just lead to dead ends and you actually can't say anything to her. So that's good, quote unquote, isn't it? My attempt to end the conspiracy fails here. We're at the head of the snake. All I can do is try to chop it off, but she is invincible and she's ignoring me as well, so that's the ultimate defense. I did try, and we're probably going to go back to not stopping the conspiracy. Really thought they might have programmed something in here. Disappointing. And in case you were wondering, it doesn't appear to be anything to do with the other NPC involved in the quest either. He just ignored me completely. After that, I went back to my castle, and as I arrived, news came in that the big one is upon us. Here's the war I was waiting for. We're now at war with the Southern Empire, who are all over the place, including surrounding our own home territory. So this is the important war. Basically, whoever's going to win this campaign, it's either going to be us or the Southern Empire. We're the 2 biggest factions by far. We border each other in a big, messy sort of way. It's time for a showdown. The first thing I did was create an army and move west from my castle, thinking maybe I can sneakily bag some territory. But all of these Southern Empire holdings are very heavily garrisoned. They haven't been attacked in a long time, so they've built up a huge militia. So there are like 400 or 500 troops even in some of the castles, meaning I couldn't do very much. Eventually I came up here to the north, to Amprella, where one of our other armies is making an attack, so I can step in to help out with this one. And I'm going to be helping out in the usual fashion. Because I'm leading an army, I'm not sure if I could leave all of my troops behind for this one. I might have left the entire army behind, I don't know, but basically, here I am sniping away at the walls, and we do take the place easily. Then I move on to the west of that city, here at Agaron. We've just lost this city to the Southern Empire, so I stepped in, since the city won't have a very big garrison because it was so recently taken, meaning my group of 500 or so guys will be enough to make a quick siege assault. I'll go in with no equipment to attack as soon as possible. That does mean we've got no siege tower or ram or anything, so we're doing this the hard way. We've just got ladders, meaning our troops will get mown down as they go over the top. I was trying to help out by sniping away, of course. Looks like I got distracted by these guys up on this tower. And for some reason the ballista is actually stopping my arrows. Looks like its hitbox is slightly bigger than it is. Inconvenient. I gave up and killed someone else instead. The good news is that sitting in front of the enemy walls on my horse hasn't attracted the enemy's attention so far, so this is going well. Looks like sometimes they're trying to shoot at me, but failing. Eventually I go inside because some of our guys got in and opened the gate, and then I helped out a bit with the fight inside the gatehouse using my nice glaive. Always fun to use this in melee, going to make a lot more use of it very soon. Basically we cleared them out and won the battle. We did lose like 100 troops, including 10 or so troops in my own party. That's a shame, and overall this doesn't have a great effect because the moment I leave, another enemy army just steps in and they're going to retake it obviously. But what we have done is stop that army doing something else, so it's not completely useless. We've distracted them for a few days, that might save one of our other territories or something. Now after that I went back to the middle of our territory and stumbled into a fight. Looks like we were about to lose this battle, but with me arriving with 100 extra troops, now it's an even affair. It was a bridge battle as it turns out, so I brought my archers up to stand on our side of the bridge and snipe across with the infantry close behind in case the enemy cross. For now all of our cav have gone across and are just harassing that blob on the other side. And hopefully our men are sometimes shooting into them. Looks like some of the troops are sometimes firing at the enemy, and that's more than we've seen before, so you've got to take what you can get. Soon it looks like most of the enemy, instead of crossing the bridge, went down into the river. That suits us because we'll just stay up here and keep shooting arrows at them really. I repositioned my men to do that a bit better, and our allies are kind of taking the brunt of this actual assault. Looks like I aimed for a while there, then shot one of my own allies, but in the shield, so that's better than usual. Now while that was happening, the enemy's ranged troops were still on the other side of the bridge. So we're having a bit of a shootout here. Me and my archers are, in theory at least, trying to get them to shoot. I think the line of sight is all over the place because our allies keep walking in front of us, and my own men too. When the formations rotate a bit, and I put them really close together like I have here, sometimes they kind of overlap each other and it all messes up. Anyway, as you can see there was a shootout, but I was being hit by stuff which was outrageous. I was so pressured that I fell back to stand behind my troops to bravely allow them to experience the arrows instead. Luckily enough at this stage we've kind of driven the enemy back, and the battle comes to an end soon, and we did it! We lost 0 troops in our own party with our brave cowardice. That's a perfect battle really. And after that the nearby city was taken, so I think we might have actually helped with something there. This city's a particularly good capture because it's one of the cities that was like right in the middle of our territory, so it's going to even up the front lines a bit. Unfortunately, it looks like Attilia is not an option to receive a city right now. But anyway, yes, you can see it makes the map look a bit nicer. We're about to lose that Agaron place again, and we are going to lose some of our outrider castles in the middle of nowhere as both sides take out the enemy enclaves within themselves. But that's to be expected. Now after that I went south to Danustica. This is one of the other cities that's in our territory, and this is the one that's just next to my castle, so my neck of the woods. Luckily enough, a nice big allied army was going in to attack, so I just helped them out, and here we are again. Really, a lot of the footage I have of this game is either me walking around on the map, since it takes quite a long time to get places, or it's me standing in siege battles, shooting men off the walls. In this particular siege battle, all those allied troops nearby just glitched out and stood underneath this bridge for the entire battle, so I kind of kept them alive by killing the enemy archers coming over here. So yes, I don't have much particularly good action-packed footage of all these sieges because they tend to be all the same. In this one it seems I was distracted by some distant enemies who actually hit me, and by the time I'm done killing them some more heads have appeared at the close part of the wall. So we'll kill them and yes, keep the troops stuck under the bridge a little bit more alive than they otherwise would be. I did this until I ran out of arrows, and then I really stepped up my game. I went over to the gates where people were still bashing their way in, and I thought I'm going to help out properly this time. I ran to the very front, smashed down the gate myself, and then bravely ran to the very back. Alright lads, you've got this one now, in you go. But then I thought no, I actually am going to do this, and decided to go join the fight myself. So I'm going to try and use the long glaive here. It's a bit too long, getting stuck on the wall and stuff as I swing it. I figured what I could do is this, just kind of snipe away at the enemy's block. They're not paying much attention to me. The issue is my glaive's bouncing off their shields, so I'm actually not really doing much damage, hitting my own side quite a lot as well. I can use the stab to attack with much less room. That's a bit better, but I enjoyed the wide swings because you can hit in theory from far away. Eventually I got into things a bit more when I realised we can just stand behind their blob and attack and they won't block me, and more to the point, they won't turn around. Sometimes they'll notice you're there, but then they quickly go back to facing forward, so they're trying to form a shield wall, and this is going to be the ultimate weakness, I guess, just having someone wildly slashing away at the back. And soon enough, we've got their blob more and more surrounded until he picks up a whole bunch of the kills herself, and their morale starts to break. They're trying to get out of there, and now I can wildly swing at people running away. And because my weapon's so long, even though I'm slow, I can kind of catch them just before they get out of range and pick up some more kills. Delightful. Soon the battle is over. We did lose a few troops, but a grand victory for our side in the war. And this time, Attili was on the list of people who could receive this city. And I was like, well, if I receive any city, I actually want it to be this one because it's next to my castle. So why don't I shoot my shot? I can throw a whole bunch of influence into this. This is a major portion of the influence we've built up so far, so we don't want to waste it. Luckily, it wasn't a waste. We do get given the place. Well, I guess we might have been given it even without the influence spend, I don't know. But basically, the city is ours, and that's perfect. I got the city I wanted, and I got a city at all. So we now have a continuous fiefdom with 2 territories in it. As for the city, it looks like it works exactly the same as castles. They have the same building system pretty much. So we need to build it up a bit. It's in pretty good condition already, but it does have no food. I think some of the villages nearby had been raided or something, so the food income wasn't looking very good. To help out, I actually went to a nearby other city and bought 20 grand's worth of food, filling up my inventory, then came over and sold it in my new city. I thought it might be something to do with the amount of food in the market. I got that impression from what people were saying in the comments to something else or something like that. It maybe worked. The food deficit seems to be not quite as bad after selling all that food. Maybe I needed to sell even more to actually do it manually. But eventually the villages come back online, and the food income goes positive in the end. Now I pulled a genius move that was so clever, I think I did it one more time after this and then never again. It starts off with me looking like I'm going to attack this castle with my own army, which of course would be a very bad idea, and I'm sure you've worked out by now that I'm not willing to sacrifice even one troop to help our allies unless I also get something, so actually taking a castle with my party would be disastrous and there's no guarantee of victory. The real plan is to just leave it under siege. I just sat here for ages until an enemy army showed up. What I realised is that the AI can smell when its castles are under siege, and it sends armies to defend them. So by besieging it with a small force, we can cause a big enemy force to just not be attacking us. It can come over here and chase me for a bit. This actually worked out pretty well in this particular case because it chased me up to Agaron there, where one of our armies had just retaken the place, meaning those 2 armies ended up meeting and we got a battle. This enemy army is only small, so it's not a particularly big deal, and the battle was a really hectic one because the enemy had no formation or something. They were just running about all over the place, and our cav were running about all over the place attacking them, so a massive chaotic brawl where I didn't do all that much because our allies are just overwhelming the enemy. I was essentially just looking for enemies to hack with my glaive and failing, so that went well. After that I continued on to the north because I was enthusiastic to take the last city that's still in our territory. Looks like something was going down here because there were tons of enemy parties just sitting around. I'm guessing an army was recently disbanded or lost cohesion or what have you, so those parties are now going their separate ways. I jumped in to attack this guy. You can see me here trying to ask him to defect. He's like, no, ask my dad or something. I have been trying to get every single enemy officer I engage to defect, and I will continue to do that, and we'll talk more about that later. In this fight, well, not much happens. There's only 20 enemies. I was just having fun using the glaive. This is definitely the best weapon by an enormous margin so far. I guess the bow is technically very good, but it's not quite as fun. We took the guy prisoner. That's another reason to go and talk to enemy officers, not only to get them to defect, but to make them your prisoner. And again, I'll talk about that later because I made a more concerted effort to get a bunch of prisoners and analyse the prisoner situation a bit more later on. For now, I just let the other guys go and came over here to help out with the attack at Tial with our faction leader leading the attack with his army. This one was a bit different because for some reason the defenders on the wall jumped down when the siege tower arrived. I have a feeling it might have been a glitch actually, but basically there ended up being a melee at the base of the siege tower. And I think it worked well for the enemy. Our guys weren't reacting very well to these enemies coming in because they were just trying to get up the ladders. So So good stuff. Didn't work out because they were so outnumbered, but I liked the idea. So yes, we break our way in, we've got the ram there which opens up the gate, and I go through that gate to get on the other side of where that siege tower was. And there I'm going to help out our allies work their way down the wall. You can see the enemy are just kind of strolling casually along the wall as if we're not here. We are going to wake them up with some arrows, and then from the top right, the horde of troops coming through the siege tower suddenly makes their attack down the wall. And there we go. We're going to take this city, and that's that. And this is a nice capture because it now solidifies our borders. Things are looking much neater. We've certainly lost some stuff in this war, and a bunch of outrider castles and cities are gone, but now our borders are a nice straight line apart from this one bit down there in the bottom right where there is an enemy castle near my castle. Here I am checking out to see if any of my own allied armies are going to attack it. And I might as well put it here, I wanted to rant somewhere about this whole not being able to know what's going on aspect to the game. Because one of the key things you need to know in your decision making is A, where your allied armies are and where they're going, and B, where the enemy are. There is a way to see what your allied armies are going to do, which I just showed you now, but it's annoying. It's several clicks away from here, the main user interface, and because it can change without you knowing, you can look something up and be like, okay, the army's going to this location, go there, and then about halfway along the journey they actually change their destination and now they're going somewhere else. Basically, you need to know where they are and where they're going all the time. And the same goes for enemy armies, because you don't get any information on what the enemy's armies are doing unless you personally see them, whereas your faction knows where they are and moves its armies to defend against them. So you also need that information so that you can decide what to do with your party, really, and not having access to the information is one of the main reasons you waste a lot of time on the campaign map just walking around. Luckily for this series I'm not really showing it, so this is my chance to rant about it and talk about it, but basically nothing happens most of the time because you don't know where the action is and where the battles are going to happen. Your allies do, there's just no way for the AI of your side to communicate what its strategy is to you as the player, so you can't really help out as well as you could do. Anyway, rant over. Looks like we've ended up in battle with a small enemy party. Probably not too much to this one. Looks like I just set the archers up to kill them all as they ran at us across a bit of open space. Easy peasy. The cav were enthusiastically trying to do something, but that's probably not going to go anywhere. So down that party goes. I went and took the prisoner back over to this nearby castle because I had this idea that if you take prisoners out of your party and throw them into castles instead, they're less likely to escape. I noticed that enemy officers you hold in your party escape like instantly, like in the same day that you take them prisoner. So I started putting them in jails instead. Apparently that's not actually very good, someone mentioned, because the AI just ransoms them off right away as well. And we're going to come back to that because it's something that annoyed me more and more throughout this portion of the campaign. Here's me grabbing another such prisoner. Easy pickings when there's a party of like 20 or 30 guys. You just jump in and kill them. Looks like I was very much just jumping in and killing with this one, just ordering a charge. We'll just run at them. They'll rout and we win instantly with very little effort required there. Just takes a while to walk across the battlefield to get that to happen. Then I went north to help out with the defense of Argeron that I noticed was going on while checking out what our armies are doing. And here I was like, our faction leader's trying to jump into this battle against a much bigger party, twice his size. And I was like, do we really want to do this? I can see you're trying to fight. It turned out, though, that the garrison of the town will come out and help in this battle, so it's a bit easier than it looks. We even have the advantage on the bar here, despite the numbers not being there. We've seen before this is glitched, so it could be just the wrong way round, like it's been before. But anyway, here's a decisive battle. It's another one happening at night, unfortunately, so that's a shame. But basically, in this fight, I set up my little line on top of this hill on the flank of the enemy's main position. They were kind of fighting the two sides in a big bowl-like valley. So I was on the enemy's left flank, trying to shoot down and just be above them. But lots of the enemy came up towards me, so I ended up really being a focal point of the fighting, actually. You can see there's a vague movement of allies going on in the background there as they're just running about. And the enemy's main blob has actually reached me here. Luckily they didn't attack me very much, it was just a few of them attacking me, and I was kind of harassing them. I think the AI was constantly walking up and down this hill that I was standing on, sometimes attacking me and sometimes going away. So I started hacking my way through them just to grab some kills, and there we take out one of their nobles, which was quite nice. But yes, overall we're more involved in this battle than I want to be. Obviously I want to come in at the end of the battle with my troops just to get some experience, but no, we're kind of fighting this one properly, actually taking down the enemy flank. There's a second officer killed against our lines, all good stuff. You can also see how cautious I'm being, keeping my cav behind some infantry and between some rocks as well to make sure they're not actually attacked by the enemy. Then after a while I do go down the hill and break forwards into this forested bowlish valley and find there are just enemies everywhere all over the place. I think this was another unstructured fight going on. It's mostly skirmishers, the enemy's infantry have been killed by this fight. So it's time to go. I'm being so cautious here, trying to reform in front of their loosely formed up skirmishers. Then I realise, wait a second, that's kind of pointless. We just need to charge into them at this stage. So yes, I give the order and off we go. And this is going to be victory for us in this battle. Down goes another officer, picking up a third one. Would be really good if there was some sort of bonus or added renown or some story events even that happened if you kept taking down officers. Unfortunately, I think they're treated the same as others, you just get a tiny bit of weapon experience or what have you. And the rest of the army gets taken down. In the end, a decent fight, as usual, didn't see most of it, but we only lost 100 troops, unfortunately 20 in our own party, and we took down more than 700 enemies, so that was a particularly decisive fight in the end. Good stuff. Looks like we might actually hang on to this city for a bit longer than usual because the enemy counter attack actually failed. Now to finish up, here's one more battle just outside the same city. After our army left, there was a pretty big enemy party walking around. They probably won't go and besiege the city on their own. I haven't seen big individual parties actually do things like that. But I figured I'll go out and kill them on my own anyway. Even though we have no particular advantage, I thought let's have a nice even fight. It's even in terms of numbers anyway, but you can see on the balance bar we do have an advantage, and that is because our army's been alive long enough that we've recovered from our previous defeats and losses, and we're back to having an army that's of above average strength with a bunch of the top tier troops in it and stuff like that. So that's going to come in useful. Here is the comfortable strategy that I kind of fell into at about this point in the campaign. When you go to capture an enemy officer and you want to not lose any troops, as I do, first you set up yourself in a nice good position, then you go and just do this. You keep sniping at them from a distance, and it does something quite familiar to Total War players, I expect. You can just kind of turn off the defensive AI by being annoying enough and cause the enemy to just charge across the field at you. This allows you to sit back and rain some arrows on them, and then when you go into close for melee combat, their formation's kind of messed up. Like before they're in a big blob, now they're all over the place and running backwards and forwards. So it's just going to be easier to bring them down in this fashion. The main downside to doing this is it takes a long time, and luckily for you don't really notice that, but for me that was pretty frustrating. I kind of felt annoyed, like this is a really good strategy, it needs to be less good so that I feel less inclined to do it. I want to just charge and get the battles going, but then I lose troops and it's so hard to get good troops back. I just really don't want to. So it's kind of like I'll be bored now to avoid being bored later, that sort of decision making. I'm not sure that's the best thing to be happening. Anyway, I said that was the last battle I'd show in this part, but actually, just a little bit after, there was a better version of the same battle, so let's look at that instead. Here I am, down near Gauss Castle, where a lot of the fighting is happening, with the two factions now kind of neatly opposed to each other in terms of their front lines. There's going to be a lot of back and forth fighting right now, and well, I've got like 2 more hours of back and forth fighting and it's still not done, so we'll see what I can make of that. A lot of that footage is nothing, as I've said, and a lot of it is this, me trying to pick up army kills by forcing the enemy off of their good position so that I don't have to lose troops to attack them, so that I don't have to go and get more troops or be even more conservative in future battles to train my troops up again. That sort of thing. And it always seems to work. The enemy do eventually give up on defending their position, and this was a particularly good one because of the map. I had this really great position myself, with the archers sitting on top of some cliffs so the enemy couldn't get them, and then with the infantry at the bottom to draw the enemy's infantry into a fight where the archers might be able to still shoot down into things and avoid all of the classic line of sight issues. So that's a good one. We peppered the enemy as they charged down this hill towards us, and then the melee is going to be easy enough. You can tell on the balance bar we can just win this one. So yes, now I need to decide what to do with this series basically. This war is just going to keep going for a long time from what I've played so far. And what I eventually started thinking is maybe I actually have to mod this campaign because it will literally never end, and I would like to see some progress get made, plus it's super boring. It just gets more and more boring to fight the war as you begin to realize that literally nothing's happening and your efforts aren't changing anything. Well, what I'll do is I'll probably rant about that a bit more and take a look at some of the cool and large battles that took place just after this. And then what I think I'll do is change things up and start bringing in the mods that everyone says are basically essential, and yes, see if the game can be radically improved just by rebalancing a bit, which is what I really suspect is the case. It seems like they've got a decent game here, they just haven't actually played it, or at least they enjoy playing it too much and don't realize it needs to take less than 100 hours to do anything. Anyway, I'm ranting again, let's get out of here. Join me for some more rants next time, and perhaps even some interesting gameplay too.